Hello everybody, my name is Celia Thornley. I am the Skills and Training Manager at UKFT. UKFT is the UK Fashion and Textiles Association. So we look after the fashion and textiles industry across the UK, and that could be anything from an alpaca grazing in a field that gives us the wool to a catwalk design. So we cover everything in between. So all the textiles manufacturing, clothing manufacturing, household goods, we cover everything that involves textiles. On a personal point of view, I joined the industry when I was 16. So I've got over 40 years experience in the sector. I started off as an industrial sewing machinist because my dream was to become a designer maker and have my own business. So I learned the ropes as a sewing machinist first, and it was such a valuable experience. It really learned me the nitty-gritty of how the business worked. I went from there and progressed to becoming a sample machinist. From there, I became a production manager, and then thankfully, I ended up with my own business. I ran that business for 20 years and decided to leave it and go into skills and training. And from that point of view, from a skills and training point of view, this job I've got now, I absolutely love it. It's a great career. We are involved in developing apprenticeships for the industry, developing qualifications, and actually talking to the fantastic groups of employers across the UK and working with careers advisors to make sure that you guys out there, you young people, understand what our sector is all about. So today I'm going to introduce you to a group of young professionals. These are young ladies who started off in the business and they're doing really well. They've got individual types of experience and individual types of jobs that we're going to talk to you about. So I'm going to start with Annabelle. Annabelle, do you want to introduce yourself? Just tell us who you are, where you come from, and what your job role is, please. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Annabelle. I'm a junior sampling coordinator at Mays London, and we are a garment manufacturers. So we produce small batch clothing and samples for some of London's leading designers. We specialise in women's wear and actually working with silk. So we make a lot of big gowns, currently making some sort of silky pajamas at the moment. And my role as a junior sampling coordinator means I meet with our clients, who are often designers, and they sort of tell me exactly how they'd like their clothes cut and sewn, you know, if there's any print placement and exactly how they'd like that. And I follow that through the factories. So telling all of our very skilled craftsmen and women how that works.
Annabelle, can you tell us how you actually got into your career?
It's quite a whirlwind. I actually have a bachelor's degree in philosophy, so I don't have a fashion design degree. I then worked in finance for a bit, decided it wasn't for me. I bought a sewing machine on the side and absolutely loved sewing. I just fell in love with it and was like, this is what I have to do. So I left my job. I retrained as a bespoke tailor for 2 years at college, at a further education college. And then I went to work with a small designer, learned a lot of beading and embellishment, and that was an amazing experience. Very sort of glamorous, worked with some great clients. But I really wanted to focus on the craftsmanship, and I really wanted to learn how to sew things to the absolute highest level. And that's when I got in touch with Diana, who's the founder of Mays. And I think I actually linked an article I'd written about how global supply chains are contributing to the sort of sustainability issues in the industry. And that's what Mays is about. It's about bringing manufacturing back to London and making it local. And that's hopefully going to improve some of the transparency behind the clothes that we're making. And yeah, she offered me a job. I interned for 3 months and then, yeah, was offered my full-time role.
And what would you say are the key skills that you think are vital to your role?
I definitely think one of the key things is to stay calm under pressure. We often work to very tight deadlines, particularly if we're working around the fashion weeks. You know, designers haven't really sort of come up with their ideas until sometimes the last minute. They don't have the fabric until the last minute, and they might not have sewn this garment ever before. So we might encounter a problem that their pieces aren't quite fitting together properly. And it's about drawing on your technical knowledge at that point in time and staying very calm and helping everyone sort of work out a solution to the problem to get the clothes sewn to the best of our ability.
Oh, that's great. It's really interesting. It's a really lovely company, Maze of London, isn't it? And the garments are beautiful.
It's a great atmosphere and everyone just really, really loves what they do. So yeah, it's great.
Good. Okay. So can we go now to Rebecca? And Rebecca works as a garment and fabric development manager at English Fine Cottons, which is an amazing company that spin their own cotton. So over to you, Rebecca. Can you just tell us about your job role?
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca. So I work as the Garment and Fabric Development Manager at English Fine Cottons. So we are the UK's only cotton spinning mill. So really what we do is we take cotton from a specific field and we take it and turn it into a cotton yarn through to fabric and then into garments. So we have our own range of garments that we then sell straight to the consumer, to everybody at home, jumpers, t-shirts, dresses, etc. So my job is basically managing that whole process from the minute that cotton comes in right through to selling that garments. That we work with other companies up and down the UK to knit our fabrics, to weave our fabrics. So I'm regularly going out and visiting our suppliers, all within the UK, keeping it all really local, keeping our carbon footprint down. And then we bring it back to English Fine Cottons and make it into garments with our sewing team here. So then we manage the making of the patterns, the design development. So it's really exciting to kind of have an idea and set a brief for a garment that you'd like, and then see that final garment come out the other end and sell it to customers so everyone at home can wear it. It's a really unique place to work.
And would you say there are any specific challenges to your job role?
Definitely. I think because we are a relatively small company in the grand scheme of things, small team, you do have to kind of wear a lot of different hats. So you have to kind of throw yourself in the deep end in every area. So whether that be the design, the quality control, the pattern cutting, the sewing, you have to kind of deal with challenges every day. Working with the supply chain in the UK, some of the companies are more geared up to fast fashion, so like Boohoo, etc. Whereas when you're looking for a high quality, premium, sustainable brand, which we are, you're kind of competing against their mentalities. They're used to making things really fast and really cheaply, and we're looking for high quality. So speed isn't necessarily the most essential part of our product and our costs, our price point. So I think getting everybody on that mentality that it just make less but make high and good quality has been a challenge, because everyone else is so used to making cheaper garments for fast fashion.
Yeah. And so how did you actually get into the role, Rebecca?
Yeah, so I've always loved textiles all through school. So I did a textiles GCSE and A level, and then I went on to university. I'm obsessed with theatre and dance, things like that, but I can't dance or act. So I thought, costume design, that would be great. So I went and actually studied fashion and costume for performance to start with. And whilst I was in that, I love making clothes. It doesn't matter whether it is for a costume, if it is for fashion. I just love the process of making a product from scratch. So then, did my degree, got a first class degree, and then went to intern in London for a year. So I worked for a company called This Is The Uniform. And that's basically, again, trying to be locally manufactured. I was a design assistant. So there was a lot of me making tea, doing the jobs. You just have to kind of start at the bottom and work your way up.
Yeah,
but we did like Fashion Week. It was amazing. We've dressed people like Dua Lipa, Beyonce, and things like that. So it was an amazing experience. There was, all of the fun sides of Fashion Week. But then really I decided that it's manufacturing I love, and it's not necessarily the nice side of design. It's the actual making the product that I love. So then I came to English Fine Cottons and I started in the quality control of the yarn. So literally testing the yarn quality to see how strong it was. And then whilst I was here, we decided we wanted to vertically integrate. And because I had the degree I had, I was then given the opportunity to run the CMT here, which has been amazing because, it's been a massive learning curve for me, but it's really hands-on. And I think it's great to kind of gain that experience as you go.
That's some really interesting points. We do get a lot of people asking, they want to become designers. They have an idea of what a designer does in the industry, exactly. And it's usually not quite right.
Exactly. I thought it was glamorous. I thought it was going to be amazing. And I did the Fashion Week, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And actually, I enjoy the supply chain side of it a lot more, and really getting down into the detail of the product rather than the final step of making that.
about product development, isn't it? And understanding about how fabrics work, how everything goes
Exactly.
together. Really, really interesting job. Thanks, Rebecca. Another interesting point about your company is you were the first ones to bring back spinning to Manchester after 50 years.
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
a really great
Which comes with its own challenges, because everyone's like, you've done what?
I know, but it's fab. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, I'm going to go on to Katie now. Katie works at Samuel Brothers, a military bespoke tailors, another amazing company. So again, Katie, can you just give some insight into your job role?
Yes. Hi everyone, my name's Katie. My job role is I'm a bespoke tailor and production manager at Samuel Brothers. Samuel Brothers are bespoke military tailors and uniform specialists. So we make ceremonial uniforms for the armed forces, fire and rescue services, and various corporate clients. We also export, so we make uniforms for presidents and defence forces worldwide, and we are British manufacturers. So we use.
Katie, you sent in some images, haven't you? If
Yes.
Laura could put the images up to show everybody, please. So this is what you make, Katie. Wow.
Yes. So these are ceremonial mesh dresses for the armed forces. These are female mesh dresses. This is our braiding work that we do.
The detail's amazing, isn't it?
This is the Royal Engineers Officers Band tunic. And that cuff detail will be the next photo. So that's about 12 meters of braid that we put on. So we have to be really accurate where we are in the workroom here in Essex. So if you start braiding and you get to your 6 meter and suddenly there's a break in the cord, or there's like shade difference, we have to take everything off. So my job here is to make sure that we start with a customer. I do a garment specification. It goes through to the factory, we sample, we get green sealed samples, and then when we go into manufacture, we make sure that the fittings are done on the customers beforehand, because what we don't want to do is make a uniform and then have to take the sleeve up 1/2 inch and all that braid work has to come off. So it's all about timings and making sure that we've got all of the relevant information. We've got supply chains in hand, and then we have to make sure, as a production manager, make sure that everything comes through and hits the deadlines on the required dates that they're needed.
That's beautiful. Is that all hand done then?
All hand done. We do it on a flatbed machine, and it's called Rockavie.
Wow, it's amazing. I mean, I did notice some beautiful uniforms at the coronation. That this kind of thing was all over the coronation, wasn't it?
Yes, so we made some uniforms for a band that was on the coronation, and then we helped with some of the preparations for some of the uniforms with badges and some of the uniforms that were going to be worn on the coronation. So very busy period for us.
And what are the challenges of creating as a tailor but making bespoke garments?
Challenges we have will be supply chain. If there's a delay in getting materials, we are regulated, so MOD shading. So if anything's off shade or it's not to specification, then it can cause a delay in the production slot. So it's my job to make sure that we're full capacity whenever we can with the production slots that we have. So that would be one of our challenges, is just making sure that everything is where it needs to be and is correct for production. Another challenge that we have is skill set. That work takes years to be able to do the intricate work, so it's just getting the skill set up in the factory and training as many people as we can.
Mm-hmm. And how did you actually get into it yourself? Did you come in through an apprenticeship, or how did you do it?
So I was quite lucky. I knew exactly what I wanted to do and go into military when I was 16. So I was able to steer my education options. So I did a level 3 production tailoring diploma alongside my A levels, and then went on to study a degree in bespoke tailoring at London College of Fashion. And it was in my final year that we make a collection. I did a military inspired collection and was sponsored by our managing director, Lee. And I worked with him for a year through my final collection. And as I graduated, he asked whether I would join the company. I joined as an alteration hand, so you alter the garments and hand sew the finishes. And then after 3 months, I was promoted to bespoke tailor. I worked in our head office in Hampshire for about 7 years. And then I moved over to the management role in our workroom in Essex. I've been in the company 10 years now.
Wow, wow, okay. I mean, I know there are a number of routes into tailoring, none of them easy. It's a really skilled job, but we do have apprenticeships at level 3 and level 5 to try and support young people into that particular industry, because there is a demand for young tailors. Okay, thank you, Katie. Okay, let's go on to Lottie now. Lottie's a little bit different. Lottie's come from the development of outdoor work primarily. So she used to work on outdoor apparel. She's moved her career slightly. So it's an interesting take on how you can make a different move once you're in the industry. So Lottie, can you just tell us a little about what you do?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Lottie and I'm based in Newcastle, in the north of England. And I work for the Social and Labour Convergence Programme. So that's SLCP for short. We're a non-profit organisation, and we have developed a tool to basically help improve the working conditions for people who work in fashion and textile supply chains. So all the things that we design, develop and wear are made in factories somewhere in the world. And the organisation that I work for is put together a programme to try and improve the conditions for the people working in those factories. So those factories might be in Asia, they might be in America, they might even be in the UK. And we're just making sure that the people who work in those factories have decent working conditions and their human rights are respected. So I had quite a different, a lot of people who work for these kind of organisations have qualifications such as human rights, or have done law degrees, or worked in international development. I had a slightly different entry route into this role. I did a fashion design degree, and I worked for over a decade designing and developing outdoor apparel. So that was like waterproof jackets and clothes for people who were going into the outdoors. And I got really interested in the sustainability side of things within that role. And I started working within that organisation on projects where we were improving the sustainability of our products and looking more at where they came from. And I got really interested in the human side of things. And that's how I ended up transitioning into the role I'm in now. So my role now involves working with brands. So I'm trying to work with brands and retailers and to get them to adopt our programme and to work with us on actually rolling out our tool in these different parts of the supply chain. So the supply chain, for people who maybe aren't that familiar with it, can mean everything from the factories that make the cut and sew the garments. So as some of the other participants in this call are working in those kind of environments, and also spinners and weavers, everything basically up to farm level is what we cover in the supply chain.
I mean, that's a really interesting point. Our industry in the UK, we are very, very conscious of sustainability and environmental aspects of the industry. And we know we've got a little bit of bad press, so we make sure that everybody knows the good work that the likes of Lottie are doing, UKFT are doing, and other things. But we do, the retailers and the manufacturers are really working hard on making sure that we are meeting environmental responsibilities, if you like, even to the point of a couple of years ago, I went over to Mongolia and we went and visited the herds on the Mongolian plains that were looking after Angora goats. And we looked at how they were doing that, and we were giving them giving each herder a badge to say that you are, meeting sustainable criteria. And all of the big retailers such as Marks and Spencer and Next, so those countries use that badge to show people that this wool has actually come from animals that have been treated well. And we also monitor the ethical route. So it's a really big thing for us within the fashion and textiles industry. So it's good to have you along, Lottie, to hear you talking about that. Are there any key challenges that face you in your job role?
There's quite a lot of different schemes and programs out there which are trying to engage brands and retailers to join, and a big part of my role is trying to get the brands to collaborate and work together. And I think that is happening more now, that the brands and retailers are starting to not be as competitive with each other and actually wanting to work together to make improvements. So it's overcoming those challenges, but that is starting to happen. There's definitely a lot more collaboration nowadays.
Thank you. I mean, one of the other issues that we have at the fashion and textiles industry is to make sure that you guys out there in your age group understand we're not a sunset industry. We're an exciting, thriving and interesting industry, and we're looking for young people to join us all the time. So given that, and that being part of my responsibility to make sure that you understand the kind of sector that we are, I'm going to ask each of the ladies to just give maybe a couple of tips on how you could get into the industry if you were interested in joining it. We've heard their experiences, but what would you say to a young person? Rebecca, I'll start with you. I'll pick on you. What would you say to a young person who is thinking of joining the sector?
I think you've got to be patient and you've got to have good work ethic. I think that's the key. I think there's plenty of opportunities out there. It's just you're not necessarily aware of them. There's so many jobs in the textiles industry that you probably never even heard of. You don't just need to be a fashion designer. There's so much more behind the scenes, and I think just by approaching manufacturers, just like ourselves, just internships, even just sending an email out to someone and saying, I want to get into the industry, have you got somewhere I can start? And just getting your foot in the door, just literally, I think just keeping at it. When I was applying for my internships after coming out of university, I must have applied to 50 plus internships and heard nothing back from a lot of them. But everybody is so busy. Sometimes it's not the highest priority to get back to people. So I think don't be disheartened by that. I think you've just got to be persistent and really broaden your search. Don't just try to be Vivienne Westwood. You've got to look at the other processes and focus down on that. But yeah, start at the bottom and work your way up. There's always a route there. That's
really good advice. What do you think, Annabelle? What would you say?
Yeah, I was going to say definitely start talking to people. You know, the industry, people like across the board, I'm sure everyone's working in fashion because they're so interested in it and really, really enjoy it. So people are always more than welcome to talk about it. And just getting in touch with as many people as you can would be my advice. And sort of building on that, there's so many resources out there. You know, there's books, there's YouTube. Any way you can sort of start building up your knowledge is what's going to give you a little bit of an edge. People want you because you're going to be helpful to them. And if you could just, even if it's, you know, something tiny about a certain type of fabric and you know that you need to cut it in a certain way or use a specific needle or something very technical that you've learned in a book, they'll be so impressed by that. And, you know, it's not an expensive thing to try and do, just to buy a book. You know, they're in charity shops or on YouTube, it's free. So there's so many resources out there where you can just start building up that knowledge that's going to give you that little edge in the industry.
Thank you. Lottie, you sent in a couple of images, didn't you? I'm sorry, I didn't ask Laura to put them up when you were talking. Do you want your images up now, and do you want to tell us what your tips are?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the images aren't necessarily related to my tips, but we could go through the images first. Yeah, that would be good, just to, because it might be interesting for some of the participants to see what we do, because it is a kind of slightly different, like we mentioned before, it's a slightly different part of the industry. So if we go to the next slide, this is quite a good one at setting the scene. So a lot of people kind of, when you buy a product in a shop, you're not necessarily thinking about where it came from. And I think that is becoming more and more at the forefront of both consumers and the general public's mind now. People are thinking more about where their clothes came from. So here's just an example of what the inside of a factory, a typical garment factory, might look like. And, you know, the kind of the long lines of machinists working on different parts of assembling a product, in this case, a pair of jeans, for example. And then if we go to the next slide, some of the human rights that we are concerned with when we're looking at manufacturing are kind of things which we might take for granted, but which have to be properly vetted and checked within the whole supply chain. So some of the topics that we cover in the tool, the social and labour tool, are things like the working hours and making sure that people aren't working excessive hours, wages and benefits, making sure people are paid properly. They're paid a minimum wage and they're also paid a living wage. the treatment of workers, so making sure that there isn't any discrimination or abuse, and then things like health and safety, so ensuring that the working environment is a safe environment for people to turn up and do their work every day. So if we go to the next slide. And it's just to show that there are, that these kind of programs, sustainability programs, do actually have some impacts. And by the brands and retailers working together to make improvements, we do get really good feedback from some of our facilities and factories to say that the impacts have been seen on the ground and they're actually having an improvement on people's daily lives, which is really great. Just to go back to your question, Celia, about where people might start, I think a big thing is just to follow what you're passionate about. So even though I'm in this role now, I actually started my interest in textiles and fashion came from making my own clothes when I was a teenager. I think Annabelle, you mentioned that as well, that you got really into making your own stuff on a sewing machine, and that's how it all started for me. And it doesn't necessarily need to be about going into education programs. There's internships out there, and I would also echo what Rebecca said about just talking to as many people as you can. And don't get worried about, follow your passions, but don't get worried about taking opportunities that might not seem exactly right, because things your career can be very long in this industry, and it can evolve like mine has. I never imagined when I started out that I would be in the sort of role I am now, but things evolve and your interests develop and grow with your career.
And it's an interesting point you made about the retailers and manufacturers working together. All of the UKFT members that we work with all have a human rights policy. They all, if they actually produce offshore, they make sure that the factories they work with have those policies in place as well. So that is really key to let you know, because we know that the industry does have a little bit of bad press, and we are working hard to make sure that those myths are dispelled. Thank you. Thank you. So Katie, let's go on to you then. What kind of tips would you give?
Yeah, I would 100% agree with everything that's been said, really. Take any opportunities that you can. And I think Rebecca said as well, start from the bottom and work your way up. You've got a long career and you can dot around lots of different places. The one thing that I would say is that everyone crosses paths with everyone in the industry. It seems like quite a big industry, but in actual fact, if you start getting into the little niche companies, we all cross paths on a daily basis. So even if you end up with one and it's not ideally what you wanted, the skill set you'll learn at one will be beneficial to another, and you can dot around. UKFT is a great tool as well. There's lots of members and we collaborate quite a lot. So I'd say knock on doors, take any opportunities you can, and even if it's just sitting with someone watching them work, you'll be surprised at how much you'll actually take in and learn from them.
Yeah, again, more interesting points. I mean, one of the things, going back to, I think, what Rebecca said was UKFT are really conscious that, young people get to understand what our industry is about and where to get the information. We've just launched recently a platform called UKFT Futures. It's a wonderful platform. It's been a long time coming and I'm very proud of it, but it tells you all about the job roles within the industry, because there's loads of them. So as Rebecca said, don't just think about design, think about the wider aspects, and they're all there on our UKFT Futures website. But it also gives you that insight into what the sector looks like via video. And we've also got job alerts on there, so they're live apprenticeship vacancies or job vacancies, and links with employers that are looking for young people.